In everything you do, first of all, consider what it means in terms of loving your neighbor, loving another human being. I am one of those people who has been blessed my whole life. I was given jobs and pay that was way beyond everybody else at my time. The most important thing in my life is my relationship with God, with my Maker.
How was the experience of working with Denzel Washington?
Now, at that time, remember, like I said, he was just.
Oh, he was just.
He was a small. He was a nobody, and because Sir Richard was big. The big guy here was Sir Richard Attenborough.
Okay.
You know, Sir Richard Attenborough, remember, he had done Gandhi and the Oscars behind him, you know, and so when we looked, we've then found Kevin Kline, Afri Woodard, and Denzel Washington. So that film actually made Denzel Washington.
Have you ever been told that you are not good enough?
Oh yes, I came across that many times. I can tell you, Studio 263.
Do you share that experience? Let's talk about the Studio 263, that project. How did it change your life? Yellow Wisdom and Purpose family, thank you so much for wisdoming and purposing with us. ImeTheFinest here. This is Wisdom and Purpose with Ime, where we help you earn more wisdom, become happier, healthier, and more wiser. So today, I'm honored to host a veteran actor, film consultant, director, founder of African Sun Motion Pictures Private Limited, and he was one of the directors of a movie called Cry for Freedom, which featured stars like Denzel Washington. That is, of course, Stephen Chigorimbo. Baba Makadi, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. My team has Zimbabwe.
I don't take it for granted when someone on our invitation and said, no, Ishe, I'm coming, let's have a conversation, let's discuss these stories that matters. I'm willing to share my journey. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming and create this opportunity. All right, so accept the side of you that we already know. Deep down, who is Stephen Chigorimbo?
Is a God-fearing man who is a father, a husband, a grandfather, and a proud African. That's why.
I heard that your father was a pastor. So how did you end up in an industry which is considered being evil, which is film, media, and related stuff?
Yeah. Yes, my father was a pastor, but I'm also a pastor.
I heard that you are an elder. Yeah, we are going to talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was brought up in a family, or a God-fearing family, where the key thing about God is love. Love of people. And expression of love. Because love is not enough until you express it.
Wow.
Yeah. And in the expression of love, people become artists. That's what really being an artist is all about. It should be expression of love. And so in my expression of love, learning to be a person who expresses love, I learned to sing, to dance, to make presentations. And in making the presentations, that's where, as I grew up, at Sunday school, I participated in drama. In high school, we did all the Macbeth Shakespearean plays and so forth. And after school, I then joined a fraternity of people who are in theater. And it was after one of my theater productions that I was invited to take part in a movie as an actor. And I remember going to my father because the part that I was asked to play was to play the part of a terrorist, because it was during the Rhodesian days. And blacks who were fighting for liberation were called terrorists. So I asked my father, is it okay for me to play this part of a terrorist, being a Christian? So my father said to me, you are acting, aren't you? I said, yeah. He said, at Sunday school, you acted as Goliath. When I was playing Goliath, when David and Goliath, because I was tall. So I said, yeah. So he says, but it didn't make you Goliath, you know, when you played Goliath, because it was an act. So it's the same thing when you are acting.
That's wisdom right there. Yeah.
That's exactly. That's how the transition. Then it became easy for me.
How did those experiences, particularly from your early ages or early stages, which is your childhood, shaped the person that you are today?
Yes, the truth is who I am today was really shaped in those first, let's call them 21 years of my life. Yeah, with my father and mother, who were singing. They taught me to sing. I was singing the choir and acting and preaching, you know, sharing testimonies, you know, until, in fact, I even learned to preach during that time.
Before we go there, let's talk about, give us a background and how did you end up in being in the insurance field?
When I finished my high school at Highfield Secondary School in 1969, I did my primary school at Zimbabwe. In fact, we were the founders of Gillingham School.
Oh.
Yeah. And then high school, I went to Highfield Secondary School. At that time, there were only 4 high schools for blacks in the country, you know. So when I finished my high school at Highfield, I then looked for employment. I wanted to be a pilot when I was in high school. And the time I was in high school, when I studied in high school, Rhodesia was part of the Commonwealth. And the Air Force belonged to, it was called Royal Rhodesian Air Force, right? And at that time, the government, just before Ian Smith, was not so racist as a government. They were trying to incorporate. So they actually came to our school at Highfield Secondary School and did an Air Force recruitment. And then, when I finished my O-level, then I wanted to go to the Air Force. And then they said, no, by that time the government had changed. Ian Smith had really taken power. So they said I couldn't become a pilot anymore. But then they offered me and a few of my friends who had been recruited at school to become aircraft technicians. In fact, one of my friends, Charles Masimbe, went on to take that up. But in my case, at that time, I said, nah, if I can't be a pilot, then the next thing I should do is become a banker, you know? So I applied to become a banker and ended up actually working for an insurance company. I became a trainee insurance. So I worked for Sanlam Insurance, where I got trained. I studied actuarial sciences, and I became an insurance person. For the next 15 years, I was in insurance. Made a name for myself. I was working for, people knew it as Southampton Insurance, and I became a training manager. I got into the echelons at that time.
Was it satisfactory?
I am one of those people who has been blessed my whole life. I was given jobs and pay that was way beyond everybody else at my time. For example, when I started working at Sanlam, where I got trained in insurance, where I did my insurance training, when I went there, the person who recruited me, then they asked me to bring my CV. And I had 5 O-levels, including math and English. At that time, whites were leaving the country. So the insurance companies were having difficulty in recruiting whites who could take up executive positions. So when I got there, and I was having been a person who had grown up in the arts, I could speak good English, I could communicate with the other management. They realized they had a jewel, so they slotted me into management training, the first black that they slotted in. And I remember they used to bring once a month there was a tutor who used to come from South Africa as I was studying my insurance. So having got in there, getting good money, I mean, it was way beyond what everybody, I mean, for example, I could tell you that when I was a clerk at Sanlam, they started me at $160 a month at a time when headmasters were earning $20 a month. You know? And this salary they gave me was this salary they were giving white people. It was an Afrikaans company, Sanlam, but they had this policy where every rank would get an income commensurate with that. So that's really how I got in the echelons of leadership. I never looked back. Remember, I got in there, I was 21, you know, in 1972.
So how old were you when you decided to quit this full-time, this 9-to-5 job and pursue filmmaking full-time? And what was the reaction?
In 1986, in 1985, I went into the movies in 1974. The first movie I was in, Whispering Death, with Christopher Lee, who was well known for Dracula. But by 1984, I had established a name as an assistant director. Bottom line was, when the productions were coming from overseas, coming to Rhodesia, they needed somebody who could convey what the director was saying to the black artists. So I started more like a translator. But then, because of my background, I became an assistant director. And so by 84, I then got a chance to do Cry Freedom, the film that brought Denzel Washington. The long and the short was, in 1981.
So let me cut you there. We are going to talk about those films and the other things that you do. When you quit your job from the insurance, what was the reaction of people around you?
Everybody thought I was foolish because I was high up. I was a training manager of a big insurance company. It was at that time it was part of the Anglo-American insurances, and I built a name as a competent insurance person. There are people who swear by my name that my training of them really launched them to become powerful people to this day. But then when I got the chance to be a producer in Cry Freedom, because I'm the one who brought the project to Zimbabwe. I was in one of my colleagues who was in the anti-apartheid movement asked me if I could fix. It's called fixing when you are bringing a project. So, and I brought the project to Zimbabwe. I negotiated the deal between the producers of the film, Sir Richard Attenborough, and the government of Zimbabwe through the Minister of Information at the time. And the project, when the project became successful and the government put in money in the project, I had no option but to go and work full-time in movies. So that's when I quit my insurance job and go in there. And of course, people thought, how can you leave a job where I had a company car, you had everything, and at that time...
At that time, was there anything that you was going through in your personal life that said, no, quit this and pursue this?
I have always been a person who listens to what God wants at the end of the day. So throughout my life, I would pray. First, I was taught by my parents every day to seek God's guidance on what I do every single day. So at that time, when the opportunity came, I remember I had been for 10 years working in the film industry, but part-time. When they came, I would take leave from my insurance job and do that. Fortunately, movies were normally a week, 2-3 weeks, a month at the most. But when Cry Freedom came, now I had a full-time job for at least a year because I was involved in the script writing, in the pre-production, and then the production. And when they signed my contract...
talk to us, how did you get that opportunity to be part of the assistant director and bringing all that big project to Zimbabwe?
Like I said, I became an assistant director. In fact, on my first movie, 1974, when they recruited me, I was in a play. In fact, I remember Nana Walter Mparutsa and Dominic Canaventi. We were in a play, an Arthur Figure play, Nongogo. When after that, then the director said he wanted me in his movie. When I went to his movie, the next day when I was on set, he noticed that they asked me, the casting person said, look, can you find us a few more people like you who can, articulate? So I recruited my friends. At that time it was Mike Chuma, Herbert Matlaba, and Mute, and so forth. So when I brought them to set, but they were not so much into acting. So when the director gave instructions, they would come to me and ask me, what is he saying? So I would explain to them. Then they would go and they would deliver what the director wanted perfectly. Then the director came to me and said, yeah, I noticed that the guys, when they talk to you, they come back, they give me what I'm looking for. So that's when he said, look, from now on, I'll make you my assistant director. That's how I became an assistant director. 10 years later, I've been on, by that time I had been part of 5, 6, 7 Hollywood movies that had come to the country. And at that time, when I was doing the person who was who came to do the Dambudzo Marichera film, House of Hunger. You can see it, House of Hunger, it's there on the tube. And I was there acting. Also, I was coordinator, production coordinator. That's when I was then told about this project that they wanted to do as part of the fighting of apartheid, the struggle against apartheid. So they said, look, we want to make a film that should actually help conscientize the world about the problem of South Africa. That's when they said they had a project about Steve Biko. So they asked me to meet the journalist who was Donald Woods. He was Steve Biko's friend. Oh, okay. He's the journalist who became friends with Steve Biko. And then Steve Biko was killed. And then Donald Woods had to run away with his family because the apartheid system wanted to kill him as well. So this guy then said, look, we think that we can make a movie from that. But what we need is, at that time, remember, South Africa was serious apartheid. And Rhodesia had become Zimbabwe, we were now in our 4th year as an independent country. So it was my job to then negotiate with the Zimbabwe government to not only support the making of the film, they ended up even putting in money in the making of the film.
Which year was that?
1984.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when I came with the project, naturally, me having come with the project, me knowing, being in the industry, and at that time I was almost the only black person in the country who knew about filmmaking, was an actual filmmaker, because I'd acted in several movies. I'd been assistant director. And when you're assistant director, as you know, you're not just somebody.
Yeah.
You know, you are in the thick of things. On a number of projects, I was there as actually the person who was really directing what was happening on set, because the directors were coming from overseas. So when this chance came, they then, in fact, Sir Richard wanted me to play Steve Biko. I was going to play Steve Biko because I was an actor, and our age mate, we were about same kind of age that Steve Biko story had happened. But then when the Zimbabwe government put in money, serious money into the project, Sir Richard said to me, "Comrade, you know, now that we got real money, I think it's better we look for actors who will resonate with the people whom we are targeting. We are not making this film for you, for Africans, because you are the people on the receiving end of apartheid. We want to make this film so that people in America, in Europe, can actually watch it." And Sir Richard Attenborough had done the film Gandhi, and he had won Oscars, you know. So he said, "Look, this opportunity, let's make full use of it. Let's look for someone who is acceptable to Americans and the British." That's when we went searching, and we then found Denzel Washington, who was, at that time, he was young and known. He had just done a series called Sent Elsewhere. But he was perfect for us, you know. So we brought Denzel Washington. He took the role of Steve Biko, and I was one of the organizers of the project. So being in that situation, that's how I got in there, really. So you could say I created the
How was the experience of working with Denzel Washington?
Now, at that time, remember, like I said, he was just...
Oh, he was just
he was a small... He was a nobody. And... because Sir Richard was big. The big guy here was Sir Richard Attenborough.
Okay.
You know, Sir Richard Attenborough, remember, he had done Gandhi, the Oscars behind him, you know. And so when we looked, we've then found Kevin Kline, Afri Woodard, and Denzel Washington. So that film actually made Denzel Washington. Because then he came, the first problem we had was he was American, Denzel Washington. And in American, a black American, they were also not open to the real African issues. In America, Africa is a small problem. So first, he really didn't know who was Steve Biko. So we had to introduce him. Who was Steve Biko? What a hero he was, how he was a hero. And so in him learning about Steve Biko, he himself became conscious of the real issues of discrimination, these racism issues. That's what made him, Denzel Washington, conscious of who he was. And but it was my job for him to learn African mannerisms. I used to spend time. He used to come to my flat, him and his wife, Pauletta, and at that time their boy, their son, who is now a film actor, big film actor. At that time, their son was was young, was an infant, you know, and we used to spend time, Denzel, Pauletta, myself, my wife, and
I heard that you showed him around Harare, walking him the streets and other stuff.
We'd go to the Shabins because he had to see what life is like for him, how he would act. We not only that, but also because of my experience having been working in insurance, I also knew the people who were the judges in Zimbabwe at the time, and we would visit these guys and Hari Kanto and Mevin Imaman and so forth, and he became familiar. So it was my job to show him what it was to be an African in Africa, and also a glimpse of what it was, what the whites were like, so that he would also be able to articulate the story of Stephen Bantu Biko. Yeah.
What does that experience of working on that project taught you about yourself and about life?
I was having, at Independence, I was 30 years old. I am one of the people who were with Bob Marley in Rufaro Stadium. At 30, I was conscious, and we are the people who, when the freedom fighters came back to the country, we are the ones who received them. Like I said, one of the people I recruited in 1974 was Ebed Mahlaba, who in 1980 came back from the struggle, now being one of the key people who were around at that time, ZANU-PF. In fact, by the time he passed on, he was governor of the Midlands, you know. That's how powerful the connections that I had were. And so now, where we are at that time, I was aware of all the issues from all sides, and I was able to make my input because of my background as a training manager of an insurance company. And I used to train insurance agents. I used to go with them to market insurance, which made I was able to interact with everybody. I meant everybody, from the teachers who became the ministers in the future to people who were being recruited. In fact, on one of my projects, when Herbert Matla was recruited to go to the struggle, we were actually on a set in Masvingo, where we were doing a film, and then Herbert Matla was there as one of my assistants on the project, and his role was to go and recruit extras from the villages. So we needed men and women, and in the process, that's when he met with the comrades at the time, and he himself got recruited. And I remember the day he left. You know, I was in Bulawayo when he came to my office, and he says, you know, this is something you don't tell anybody, but I have to tell you because you are part of the thing. I'm leaving now. What say you're leaving? I'm leaving. I'm going out of the country. And okay. Then he don't know after he'd gone that he says, no, the guy was going to the struggle. That's how he went. And then when he came back from the struggle, we got in touch again. And so now those issues only come to people whom you don't just interact with people who become big like that in the future. That's from nothing, except where you are in a position where you are following the path that God has determined for you.
All right, pre-1980, I'm sure you witnessed some of the injustice that too were happening in this country during the Smith regime. With the current state of Zimbabwe now, are you happy?
I am very happy. You see, it's only you, my millenniums, my born free, right? Who think that being under colonialism had advantages. The disadvantages under colonialism far outweighed the advantages. Yes, life was cheap. That's true. But it was cheap because, one, people did not value money the way people do now. At that time, you could go for a month without having spent any serious money. Come month end, you would spend what you could spend. Yeah? But that was because this house where we are, we were not allowed to be here. When you came here, you could only stand at the gate and ask for the nanny, right? And you were not allowed to go to school, to the schools. There were very good schools in the country that were not allowed. I couldn't go to Prince Edward. I remember when I was at Highfield, we tried to arrange a debating event between Highfield and Prince Edward. It caused a row at the school, right? You couldn't, even in town, I was thrown into stocks.
All right, let me catch you there. We fought for freedom of expression, freedom of media, direct vote, and a whole lot of stuff, including the land, which was part of that. Now, the direct vote is being reduced with the CAB 3. I'm sure you are aware of that. Media, for a longest time, Zimbabwe was one of the first country in Southern Africa to have a broadcasting television station. But they monopolized the system. We now only grow up with one television station. Even the ones which are imaged recently on 3K TV and NRTV are basically, like I said, they are cousins of the state broadcasters. So it limits a lot of things. So that's why I asked you, are you happy with the current state of Zimbabwe right now? So you can start now, addressing.
Let me be open with you. CAB 3 was there at independence. That's what brought Mugabe. When Mugabe took over, what was there was literally what is being talked about in this new thing, okay? So there's nothing new really about it, except that at the time when Mugabe came into power, there were issues where we were, at that time, Zimbabwe was one of a few countries who were free, right? And to fight to help the countries who were not yet independent, like South Africa, like Namibia, like Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, and other countries, so that we needed to give power to, to remove power from it being under the control of the people who were elected to rule. Because remember, all the parliamentarians, they are not there from the bush. They've come from the people, right? Okay? They haven't come from the people. The people are already represented in parliament. You know what I mean? But at the time when Mugabe was there, it was necessary to change the system so that it could not be affected by outsiders. You understand? So it's not affected by the outsiders. That's why they had to change from a system that was almost what we are now bringing back, right? So that there would be better control when the enemies, outside enemies, were throwing their spears. That's why they had to change the system to give more power to the, let's call it, to the party at that time, right? What is happening now, the changeover, is actually giving back power to the people. Because the same people who have elected, you know, you have elected the people to go to represent you, right? Those are the ones you want to answerable to you for for things. If things don't go well, you want to ask them, to challenge them, why are you doing this? Like you see what happens in China. You hear that a minister has been taken to the firing squad. Why? Because the system now, it makes the ministers, the parliamentarians answerable for the actions that they have done. You understand what I'm saying? So when I look at it, I'm seeing that we are actually worrying about something we shouldn't, because the system that has been there, or the system that is now coming back, at the end of the day, this CAB 3 or whatever you want to call it, will actually make it better for the average person in the street.
How?
In that you are now making your minister, your MP, answerable. Same MP. We wanted a good road here. When you came to ask for votes, you asked for votes so that we would have a road here. But we have not delivered.
Do they give a listening ear? Because from the...
At the moment they can't. Because the system as it is now gives them loopholes where they will answer and say, it's not me, it is determined by this or that one, or the person who is answering. But that one is going to make every MP, every minister answerable. Because it's no longer, you see, the thing is, when people are asking for votes, they do that as a party. But as soon as they've gone into power, they are no longer just representing the people who voted for them. You are now an MP for everybody, including those who were in the opposition. You are responsible to them. But the system now makes it as if the ministers belong to ZANU-PF. You understand what I'm saying? As opposed to, no. The ministers are our people. The MPs are our MPs. They must be answerable to us. I should go to my MP and say, MP, this is wrong. Which the system at the moment doesn't actually make that clear. But the way I see it, this is my way of looking at it, right? And I think I'm fairly knowledgeable, because I interact with everybody. I interact with people who have been ministers, people who are ministers, people who have been who have been and come out, people who are going in and so forth. So and being a person in the media, in the media, you have to be open-minded. You're not just influenced because I want my party to win. You know what I mean? But what does it mean to my children, to my grandchildren, to me as a person? There are issues we are dealing with, we're grappling with right now. For example, we really have been saying, look, we want to see more money poured into the arts industry. When you are making a production like this, you would go to a film commission and say, I'm starting a project, 1, 2, 3, and I need 50,000. So I want 50,000 loan, which will be repaid when it's working well, all right? That system is not there at the moment. You understand? We want to see those things there. But the only way for that to happen is when the people and the people in the trade, in the industry, are able to interact with the people who are actually governing. And my view, personally, I think this changeover is an attempt to bring that back. Of course, how successful it become depends on the implementers and, of course, the leadership that will be there at the time. Those are the issues. So definitely, I've seen the days when we started, when 1980 we became free, right? For 10, 15 years, the people and the government were together, right? And those were the days before this system, the new system was in place. You understand what I'm saying? Because our MPs, like I was saying, I was telling you, Ibn Matla was my friend, whom I worked with, and he became an MP. I was in a position where I could have become an MP, but I chose because of what I was doing at the time, that what I was doing was going to be good for me and and it actually worked well that I did that. But and now when this changeover came, the changeover came to enable our government to be able to fight neo-colonialism. The whites, remember, at the time when we became independent, everything belonged to white people, especially money. The land, the buildings, the companies, the banks. I went in trying to get a loan from a bank, right? After independence, but because the control was with the whites, they turned my loan application down. They turned it down. And then a white person whom I employed went in to ask for the loan. They gave him. And I went back to see the manager and say, hey, what have you, how can you do this? Then he says, well, there are issues that we look at that I don't have to tell you. And this was 4 or 5 years after independence.
All right, let's talk about having one television station for the longest time.
Right, good. Let me catch you on that. You see, the television station, that where does the strength of a TV station come from? It comes from a TV station is like any other business. That's a normal TV station. It's like any other business, including like what you're doing here. This is your company, right? A business survives on its strength is, do you have the resources to get the cameras that you need? Do you have the resources to go and market your business? Do you have the resources to actually deliver to the people? Isn't it? That's what happens. So it's the same thing. Now, in any country, there is one TV station which is normally known as a public broadcaster, like the BBC, like the SABC, like Canal Plus in France, and so forth. Every NHK, every country must have a public broadcaster to begin with. But the public broadcaster is the one whom part of the job of the public broadcaster is to dish out, to be the mouthpiece of the government.
Mouthpiece of the government?
Yes, part of now we're talking about the public broadcaster. Part of its mandate is to articulate, to be the mouthpiece of the government. Whether it's BBC or it's NHK, there is an aspect of the public broadcaster that is a mouthpiece of the government. But the other stations don't have that mandate. They're supposed to be independent. But their independence is not enough if they don't have enough resources to actually say to a filmmaker, come and make a film about Steve Biko. You understand what I'm saying? They got to have where do those resources come from?
Okay, let me cut to the. Isn't the mandate of a public broadcaster to represent people from, irregardless of political parties, different ideologies?
Let me be honest with you. He who pays the piper calls the tune. The investor.
Let me cut you there.
Yeah.
You bring in a very important aspect.
Element.
Element. The public broadcaster is funded by the people.
No.
That's where there is a license fee and the other stuff that we pay. So that we will dictate that, no, we don't want to see that shit that you are putting on national broadcaster because we fund it. So you must give us the content that we need.
Good.
So that's what we need.
Yes.
And we want different political parties to be covered fairly. We wanted to see you on national broadcaster. We want to see this person who disagree with you on the same platform.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
you are right.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the reality, it's like, there is no leadership by committee. In every house you go to, there is a father and a mother who determine when the rent is going to be paid, what is going to be eaten, right? Even though the children have as much stake in that home. Agreed? But there is always somebody who has been given the mandate to be, you are the one responsible to lead. And in a nation, you give the responsibility to your parliamentarians, because the leader of government is really the chief minister, isn't it? That's what it's like, right? But the people who actually determine must be the parliamentarians. They're the ones who must say that. Must say this we like, this we don't like. Agreed? Remember, I come from a time when the government was white government, and we had no say at all.
No, Baba. You are a filmmaker.
Yes.
We have one TV station. We have to submit our films.
Yeah.
The journalists need jobs there. They
Yes.
have to. We must look for employment there. Filmmakers, musicians, they need this platform. There's a lot of bottlenecking in terms of content. If you are a filmmaker or a creative, so if they had allowed private players to chip in and cover that gap, I think our films would have gone international. I think our music would have reached global markets in some sort. What do you have to say about that?
Right. First and foremost, there is nobody. I cannot come to you and say, I want to form a company and give you the company. Nobody does that. You are the one who must come to me and say, hey, I want to form a company, but I think you can help me by putting 1, 2, 3. The same thing we have to do with government. It doesn't matter which government. We are the ones the people in the industry are the ones who must go to government and say, this is what we need, which is what we are now doing. We are doing that now. You heard about the strategic seminar in the film industry that has been running on. Yeah, we've been in there, right? That is us now, filmmakers saying, government, this is what we need in the industry. Because it's only us who know what is wanted. Government, there's nobody in government who can say, you people, this is what you need to do, the 1, 2, 3, including the public broadcaster. We are the ones we've demanded. We've said, no. Public broadcaster must play its role to us. Yes, sure, you need to pass your information. That's good. But us as people, like what you're articulating, you're absolutely right. There are things that the public broadcaster is the training ground. Is the one who, when you start your project, it must go there, and that's where people, the way Studio 263 was successful. Because that's why I came and went Studio 262 to ZBC, and I did with them, and because that's part of the public broadcast. It's like when they were doing, this program for agriculture, where not Murimanas, the other, command agriculture. You know what I mean? There, command. We also want command broadcasting, where man is there, where a person who's got ideas, they go there and say, yeah, I've got my idea, this is the idea, let's do it, and it's shown on the public broadcaster. That is definitely our right. But the only person who can demand that is people who are in the industry, who know what they've got.
No. Let me cut to the registration process is very tough. When you want to open a radio station, even a broadcasting company, because they will invite you. You are not the one who will go there. They will invite you. So how, to me, as just on the balance, so I find it problematic. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I just want to remind you to subscribe, like, and comment so that our content will reach more people. Thank you so much.
Right. You are right. But there are some things that you need to take into consideration.
Okay.
These things are everybody, according to their job, their core business. When they wake up every morning, they have to think in terms of how to satisfy their core business. The same thing goes to politicians, right? The young people whom we put in there to be a politician. Firstly, for them to be able to become a player, they must be acceptable to the people, to the system that is there at the time to enable them. The same way that as a black person, I could not become an MP during Smith's time because Smith's law was not accepting that black people could do that, right? The same thing happens even with the government now. There are some rules that they have to follow for reasons that sometimes they cannot even explain to us. For example, you've seen what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz today, right? Why it's like that? Because what we didn't know all these years was that America was in control, right? If you don't do things that are suitable for what the Americans want, they will not allow you. That's why Iran was under sanctions for many, many years. Because who is really in control at the background? You understand? So who is really in control of governments? You understand what I'm saying? Is the elements that are the rules that have been made internationally that the ordinary person may not even understand. So they have to follow certain rules in certain areas, which those rules must be broken down. They can only be broken down when we come in, like, now what you are saying, no. We think that, and you are absolutely right, that our public broadcaster must support the whole industry, not just give support to the government. Giving support to government, yes, it's okay, because they must be the mouthpiece for government. But they must at the same time also give support to the ordinary filmmaker, the ordinary viewer, people who want to watch football, people who want to watch whatever other projects that are there. They must not just support, they must present the platform. At the same time, there must be an enablement environment. That enablement environment does not come from the public broadcaster. It comes from your parliament.
I think there is a misconception that the public broadcaster must be the mouthpiece of the government. Because those are takusaona NBC ndondomenda apezvoona ndiri mupana kana kunotoona ndikutongoona ndichidarika yangu indone mistake, but I don't watch that simply because of those reasons. And a lot of people, even the numbers will tell you if they say something that you will check the numbers, the viewership of the public broadcaster, because it won't make sense to keep on watching something if you pay your license fee. Exactly. You are expecting them to give you content that you need, and you wanted them to give diversity of views, employ people with diversity of views, so that you give content to the people that they like, but they are not allowing that. But anyway, due to our time, let's talk about the Studio 263, that project. How did it change your life? And what was it about? Right. Because most of people...
Like I said, in 1984, I did Cry Freedom. I'd done many other very successful projects. 1987, I went to Burkina Faso to attend Ouagadougou, the Continental Film showpiece, right? And when I was there, I was exposed to African broadcasting. And then I worked in Nigeria, where I went there to do a film by a Zimbabwean, the same guy who did Cheat. And while I was there, I then interacted with Nigerian Television Authority. And there, they were doing television series. One of them was called Behind the Clouds, which I was able to take part in. And Behind the Clouds was being watched when I was in Nigeria by 40 million viewers every time it was on showing. That's when I came with a VHS of that project and other projects to Zimbabwe. And I said to my film colleagues, hey, look at this. Godwin Mauru was one of my students. So I said, Godwin, I showed him. Godwin loved it. He says, Mkoma, we must do this. And I said, yes, we must do it. So 2002, we had an opportunity, again, persuading the public broadcaster. remember, like what you said, public broadcaster had inherited laws from Rhodesia, which, although it was 20 years after independence, those laws hadn't changed, because who was controlling the airwaves at the time? Because remember, it's about who controls the airwaves. So we went to ZBC and we said, look, Gordon Maur said, we want to do this project. Fortunately, there was an advertiser who wanted a program that was successful, which was PSI. PSI is USAID, remember? And USAID was trying to move with the struggle against HIV problems at the time, right? So we got this opportunity to work with ZBC, and there was someone who could fund the project. That's where remember, at the end of the day, the person who's paying the money is the one you must convince. So because we had got that, that's when we said, okay, Godwin said, look, let's make this, let's do this project the way you showed me Yeku Nigeria. So we sat down, Aaron Chundramoyo, Godwin Mauru, and then we put in there the things that were successful. So Ananda was very successful in Nigeria. We put those things in, it became powerful. Everybody, why Tombo Miracle 260, doesn't matter who you were, whether you were a soldier, a teacher, kind of time in 263, people go and watch it because of the things that were in there, right? That made it popular. And naturally, to me, it was my chance to bring home what I had seen in other countries. And I brought it, and it showed that it worked. And the public broadcast realized, it can work, and it can. But then the challenge that comes with those issues is, like I say, it's a pyramid issue. The person you put in to be your MP must be able to stand up and say, for this thing to work, support our filmmakers, right? Our people who are making these productions. The way to support them is 1, 2, 3. That's what must happen, and that is what has been missing for a long time, and that's what we've been pushing. Say no, let's have that happen, and once that happens, we are going to see that, because like now they've opened up a bit more. You notice that ZBC has called broadcasters, producers. They've been making projects that are ananyami vae, ananjake and so forth. When the day those will be screened, right? Of course, because ZBC has given them the money, so they are going to show on ZBC. And when you hear it, Ndara, film yemi amagaita njake pa ZBC, wakuti now, although one goes on, ukaona uti no sense, it's going to tell the authorities, wait a minute, there's a gold mine here, yataka dzinyirira. Saka, what is it that is required? That's what we've been working on. Look, put in place systems.
I wish we had time here. I really wanted to talk more about this project, but yes. Now let's talk about education as far as filmmaking is concerned.
Yeah.
Did you get formal training in filmmaking, and is it important to go to a filming school and learn some things?
Right. There? In Nini, I only got formal training the way that people are now learning, where in India there is a film production course, Irkwitika, Kwakat, which will accept people. I tried to go into National Film and Television School in Britain, in it, right? But at that time, I couldn't afford it. By the time I could afford it, I had learned by on-the-job training. But then I had trained, like I said, I studied insurance, which bottom line, how to manage issues, how to manage money, how to manage projects. That I had learned at school. But formal film making, I only then learned that I want to learn directing, I want to learn editing, I want to learn cinematography. But that is, for me, because during my time, there was no film industry in the country for blacks. They were for whites, right? Broadcasting is what was there. But now, today, you ask the question, is it necessary for a young person to get film training? If you are, these days, the way things are, there's formal schools. Many people have learned the other way. And these days, you can learn on the internet. And I know many people have become directors, producers, and become very effective about it. But for the one who's coming out of school, the easy way in is to say, well, take up the ZIFTESA thing, take up the UZ media training, or take up whatever it is. That's for the one who's coming from school. But for anybody else, no, it's not necessary for you to actually go to varsity. It's actually more practical to come and work with your company, my company, and other companies. It's much. That's how I learned. I learned that way. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your company. You founded African Sun Motion Pictures Private Limited. What is it about, and how was that experience?
1986, when after I'd done Cry Freedom, I then realized that there were, because now I was in touch with the film industry throughout the world, and it was necessary for me to have a formal company so that I can, production companies can come in and I can work with them in the production industry. That's why I formed Africa Sun Motion Pictures. And through Africa Sun Motion Pictures, there's quite a number of projects that we've done. But also, I was able to negotiate deals for the industry through that, because formal registration is important. It gives you an identity. At the same time, protects you as an individual from the challenges of the industry. You know, when you are applying for funding from banks, from right now we're setting up the film fund being set up. It's companies who can apply for that. That's why I formed Africa Sun Motion Pictures. I've had ups and downs because there have been years when the industry, for various reasons, the industry has gone through trying times, like every other industry. There's no industry which has not gone through its difficult times. It has its ups and downs. But right now, we are on the up. And I'm glad to hear you guys are setting up like this. And I'm looking forward to you taking full advantage of the structures that are being put in place. To really
definitely will do that.
Yeah.
So can you give us advice on how to get funding? Because funding is the most difficult thing to get, from pitching. Everything else is very difficult when for creatives to get such opportunities. How to do that?
Yeah. The thing is, filmmaking or cinema industry is no different from agriculture. For many years, agriculture did very well. But when you look at it, it's because of the inputs that were coming from the government. You see, when I've made my money, I can make my productions the way I want. But when you want to make a production, for you to come to me and ask me for my money to put in your production, it becomes difficult. But it is the job of government to put in place command agriculture, like they've done with the agricultural finance company, to put in place all the things that are successful, mining industry and everything. That support is necessary. So now we have talked to the government mainly through the Ministry of Arts and National Arts Council. That is the institution who is put in place to give the support to to this industry. We have challenges at the moment because it's one thing, the minister saying we are giving $1 billion to the film industry, but it's another for the film industry to actually get $1 million. I mean, the government puts in $1 billion, right? And we want 1 million. To get that 1 million becomes difficult because you have to fight with other institutions in the situation. That's where you needed the support of your MPs, the support of people who are of influence to say, no, you guys are letting us down. This year, the government is putting a bit more money. Fortunately, a few years ago.
I'm told that we are running out of our time. So now let's talk about, you are a pastor, yes you said. So many churches, many Christian circles, they discourage people to get into filmmaking, to get into media, to get into this creative space. So is there anything wrong for a Christian to be in this space?
Absolutely nothing wrong. Being in the creative space is the most powerful area because creativity is about music, it's about literature, writing, it's about dance, you know, and all those things. Without being able to write, nothing can move. Even if you are a lawyer, you have to be able to write and read and write. Dancing, without you enjoying what you are doing, you know, without a rhythm, because dance is all about getting a rhythm into the things. Without a rhythm, nothing is exciting, nothing, you cannot enjoy doing anything. So, no, even as a Christian, I encourage Christians to be in the industry. That's why in churches, successful churches are the ones where the people are dancing and singing and preaching.
So how did you become a pastor? Did you go through the college? What happened? What was your calling like?
I trained to be a pastor long before I became a pastor. I became a former pastor the last 10 years when I but maybe that's not that quite, because I've been a pastor for a long time, except I was not using the name pastor. You know, there are people some people are called deacons, others called elders, and so forth in churches. Really, what they're doing is pastoral work. That's what they should be doing.
How was that? How was the experience? Let me say, how is the experience for you of running a ministry?
Very satisfying. I'm now pastoring a church which wears white garments.
Which?
Wears my white garments.
Oh, okay.
It's an apostolic church. I grew up in a Pentecostal church, the AFM. But then my uncle founded an apostolic church called the Apostolic or Holy Church. And when my uncle passed away, I then switched from AFM to the church where my uncle used to lead, because now I had to fill in the leadership vacuum that had come. That's how I went to that church. And when I was there, I had become a pastor.
Is it true? Let me say, is church a business?
Yes. Church is a business. Church is a school. Church is a hospital. Church is it's a hospital, I mean, for healing. Church is 5 things in one. The church there is a business side. Everything, there is a business side to it.
But many people don't want to talk about it, man. Those who churches a business, they'll say, no, my demon, so because I find a lot of things problematic as far as the church business is concerned. Now let's talk about, you have traveled around the world.
Yes.
So what lessons have you learned from traveling?
Traveling. If it's only a person who has not traveled who still thinks that the world is only his village.
Exactly.
You know, when you've traveled, then you find things that are done differently from the way you do things, and you find those things work for those people. Before you travel, you think that everybody for a girl to be married, there must be lobola paid for them. Until you travel to another country where actually the in-laws, the father-in-law is the one who pays the lobola, like in India, right? Or you go across to another nearby country where they don't even talk about lobola. But before you've traveled, you think things are like this. You've got a myopic sight. But when you've traveled, it opens your mind to realize, wait a minute, these things are working for those people.
So is filmmaking sustainable? Can you earn a living solely from filmmaking?
Filmmaking is no different from agriculture. I like to put agriculture, right? There's agriculture as a worker, there's agriculture as a business, right? Same thing with filmmaking. There's filmmaking as a technician, and there's filmmaking as a business. You have to handle the business side of film the same way the one who is in the business of agriculture is selling fertilizer. Handles that.
We are going to take a quick short break, then we will talk about, you grew up in Highfield, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the things that you are forgetting as far as Highfield is concerned. So don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I just want to remind you to subscribe, like, and comment so that our content will reach more people. Thank you so much. What stories from that time do you think young people or young Zimbabweans are forgetting?
Right. Today, Highfield is another suburb of Harare. When we were growing up, Highfield was the place. And of course, when you say Highfield here, you're including Mbare, you're including Zevaresekwa, you're including Mufakosi. Okay. But Highfield per se was the capital city.
That's where everything was happening.
Yeah, that's where we had. I remember in '66 taking part in a strike when I was a little boy who was in Form 2, and our teacher was saying, "Wafana, kune strike nas." Saka chienda imese ndamutsvaga matombo. Tutsvaga matombo towenza matombo apa kana tasvika pastage yekuti moenda monohwanda maihwanda kuseri kwemawalls echikoro, and then anenge ariko yozoti hafana fire nditicha aidaruka totora matombo kukandidzira kuseri kwakune mapurisa kana wafaya dombo rako womhanya imwe munotiza makadai right. That's Highfield. And my politicians essay with Dana Ndabanengistori, Dana Robert Mugabe, Dana Chinamano, Dana Nduk. That was the place where the activities were. But also,
so may answer our question, what are we forgetting as young Zimbabweans as far as our history?
First and foremost, the pride of us as Africans. In spite of Ian Smith, and everything else, but when we were there in Highfield, we were demanding to be ourselves as Zimbabweans, right? You know Zimbabwe grounds, you can see. Now, the one thing that I think now young people are forgetting, that to be a Zimbabwean is your right, and you need to run with it, even against all odds. Because in Sisuka, we had serious odds against us. You could be shot, you could be killed, you could be arrested, you could be put behind bars for a long time. But you knew what I'm fighting for must be something of value. That was the next important thing. These days, people are now fighting for money. Right? Most of the people, ana Edson Stole, anani weswamwa vakasvika pakufa fighting not for the money but for what was right. Unfortunately, these days, when people are fighting for things, just think, what am I wanting to benefit here? Money or Ubuntu? Naiga chinonzi hunu. Now chinonzi hunu chacho. The bedrock of hunu is the love of your neighbor. And the person who you are born with in your country, that's your neighbor. as opposed to xenophobia to go to South Africa.
Our neighbors are making a lot of noise next time.
Okay.
So let's finish up first. As far as filmmaking is concerned, what is one mistake that you see people repeating?
In filmmaking? Yeah. It's not one. There are many mistakes.
For now, just mention one. Just mention one. The most important one.
You see, filmmaking is not individualistic. It's not something you would in Steve Chigorimbo. Saka zvinhu according to Steve Chigorimbo. Filmmaking is corporate. You need a camera person. You need a director. You need an editor. Not because you can't edit, not because you can't direct, but because you share. You can't at the same time do everything. So you decide who you are going to share with so that that thing becomes a success. Unfortunately, the biggest mistake I'm seeing is people who think if they go to apply for money, they find money to make a production. 50,000. Otora 40,000 esa mwengi. 10,000 do ya kunu pavamwe. You understand?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Same thing you are mentioning my churches again. Same problem you have my churches. With the church, it's not about making money. No, church has to make money, but it's not about you being selfish about it.
All right. During your days as an actor, have you ever been told that you are not good enough?
Oh yes, I came across that many times. I can tell per Studio 263.
Do you share that experience? Just brief.
Studio 263, my friend, my young man, go to Munina wangu ati mkoma kame, let's do it. I looked at the script. There were things that are wrong in the script. And then I said, look, one of the things that was missing was there was a need of a central character. Anita kuti balance and it. So we said, we create the part ya Huni, John Huni. And then they said, now who's going to play John Huni? You know? They're talking about it. And so forth. I mean, so over that one God and look, I don't mind playing that part. Let me do it. Now God unites actor before. But the other guys were not now, I won't mention names. So I say, Steve, since when so actors.
How did that affected you personally?
Because I had met that before I knew. When people don't know who you are, because people think they know you because they've shaken hands with you. But actually shaking hands with someone doesn't mean you know the person. The person and got the whole background to the person which you don't know. And then after ndova razuta alright again. Ndova vazo good enough I no. Let him do this. Vandaita party here. It became magic. It became one of the central characters. And then they wanted to fire Muvengo. My director hip-hop. Muvengo antaura shona too much. This is a thing, a modern thing. It's about the modeling. How can we have a person antaura shona in a project? But the issue is not about what is it. The issue is about the audience. Something that makes people want to see the thing. And this guy, the way he speaks Shona and so forth, there are thousands of people out there who like him for that. So let's make him character. One of the guys I direct, I'm resigning. You know what I mean? But afterwards, your experiment worked.
All right. Yeah, so at this age, what does success mean to you?
Success, if you are able to sleep with a clear conscience, without feeling I've robbed somebody, to me, that's success. A lot of people can have money in the bank. That's having money in your bank in your name is not success when you can't sleep, because every day you think the police will arrest you or somebody's going to come after you. It does, and success is you must have good health. Now, good health is not just physical. Good health starts spiritual. You have to have a good relationship with your maker. Now, your maker, there are two makers to a body. The first maker of a person is your mother and father. You got to have a good relationship with your mother and father. It doesn't mean they are angels, your mother and father. But they are the people who made you come on earth. So have a good relationship with your mother and father, and then seek a good relationship with the creator of your mother and father. Once those three are there, now your body, soul, and spirit will be satisfied with the things that you do. That's success.
What's one question you wish people ask you?
I wish people to ask me. The one question I wish people to ask me. What is the most important thing in my life?
Can you answer that?
The most important thing in my life is my relationship with God, with my maker.
All right, as we close, I want you to look at this camera and read a letter you would write to any 25-year-old Stephen Chigorimbo. Give him advice or anything that you want. Read a letter. Under 1 minute. Let's go.
Dear Stephen Chigorimbo, first and foremost, enjoy every day of your life as if it's the last day of your life. My friend, give honor to your God in everything that you do. My friend, set the record straight with the people whom you love, the people whom you care for, and the people you feel should be caring for you. And my friend, honor your mother and father. In return, everything that you do in your life will go well. That's my message to you today.
Thank you so much for doing it. What do you want to be remembered as?
I would like to be remembered as a person who succeeded in the things that he set out to do, because he knew why he was on earth to begin with.
All right, thank you so much for coming through. As a tradition, we have what you call the final 5. I'm going to ask you 5 questions, then you answer them as short as you can.
Okay.
One word, or if it is long, it's one sentence.
Okay.
If you had to make one universal law, which one would it be?
Love one another.
What's the best and the worst advice you ever received? Let's start with the best.
That you are not good. The worst is you are not good enough. That's the worst advice. You should never take. If anybody says you are not good enough, because your determination is what makes you. The best advice I got was, consider in everything you do. First of all, consider what it means in terms of loving your neighbor, loving another human being.
If you could change one thing in Africa, which one would it be?
In Africa, nothing.
If you could rewrite one part of your life story, which part would you rewrite?
A part in my life that I could rewrite. I'm thinking Because all the things that I've done, the Bible says the footsteps of a righteous man are ordered by God. And I want to believe every step that I've gone through, even those that were very, very, very painful, I learned more from the painful moments than I did from the ones where I was having fun.
Thank you so much for coming through, man. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this discussion, this conversation. Every time I have a conversation with someone, I try by all means to make it count, to make it impact someone, so that someone who is watching out there, they will learn something, they will gain something from the conversation. And so far we are receiving a positive feedback, and I'm looking forward to keep on producing such kind of content so that people will learn. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence. You decided to come and have this important discussion. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. May God bless you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you so
May
much.
God bless you too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this far. This is Wisdom and Purpose with Ime, signing out.